Now, we're moving on to some legal studies skills. All right, one of the best skills you can learn as a HSC student is understanding mark allocation, which means knowing what the markers will give you marks for and what they won't give you marks for, okay? For example, if it's a discuss question, you need to talk about both the pros and the cons, okay? That's what discuss means. You can probably say, all right, it's a 6 marker to discuss question, 3 and 3, 3 pros, 3 cons. It's important to become aware of that mark distribution as you're answering questions, okay? Because, for example, if I'm doing only pros, you can see I've only given myself 3 marks. Okay, so if we got the question, outline how international human rights are incorporated into Australian domestic law. 1 mark would be incorporated through common law precedents and courts. You would need to be talking about that. 1 mark, it's incorporated through legislation, and then 1 mark is through the Constitution, as we just looked at, okay? So let's say, sorry, I've just realized I put 1, 1, 1, but it's a 2 marker. Let's say 3 ways, okay? Split that mark value 3 ways. And then that's where each of the marks would be for. You would need to cover common law, legislation, and the Constitution, okay? Without a doubt. Okay, outline how trade unionism can protect labor rights. Well, 1 mark would be for defining trade unionism. Always, whenever you see a human right, you need to define it, okay? So 1 mark straight away is for defining trade unionism. 1 mark is for collective bargaining and the idea of how it actually works. And 1 mark is how they can provide legal advice to workers. So the 2 different functions of trade unions. Case law and an example would be really, really good and would guarantee you those marks. Okay, describe how the common law in Australia promotes and enforces human rights. Use an appropriate example to support your answer. Okay, 1 mark, if this is a 4 marker, 1 mark would be defining common law, okay? Again, it's a key piece of terminology. We need to define it. 1 mark would be for the promotion, 1 mark for the enforcement, and 1 mark for an example. All right. So you basically need to be able to work out the mark distribution. It helps you save time and be more concise. Because if you're going on and on about promotion and then don't touch enforcement, you could have spent, half a page on promotion. You've only guaranteed yourself 1 mark. So you need to be smart. You need to work out the mark distribution for each question. This goes on to me saying time is short, don't waste time, okay? The best way to do this as well is knowing your verb, okay? So if you're asked to compare, you need to show how things are similar or different. If you're asked to identify, you literally can dot point if you're asked to identify. If it says identify a human right enshrined in the Constitution, the right to trial by jury. You literally can just put that and it's a mark. However, if it's define or describe, different, okay? And you can see that if you were describing for an identify question, you're wasting time. Okay, we're not going to go through all of them. As I said, if it's discuss, you need to identify issues and provide points for, and, or against. That's the NESA term. It says for and or against. That's how NESA have defined discuss. However, I would say to always give for and against. So writing response that only says why we should have a Charter of Rights will only get you a maximum of half the marks. So you'll only get 3 marks, as I mentioned before. Okay, so explain means to relate cause and effect, make the relationship between things evident, provide why and or how. To promote is to raise public awareness of something and bring forward as an issue. Okay, so let's have a quick look at this response to this 3 marker. The Australian Human Rights Commission is a national institution that promotes human rights through awareness programs or campaigns dealing with human rights issues. Okay, so I've just outlined how they do it, well, through awareness programs and campaigns. In addition, the AHRC prepares and releases reports concerning human rights. Example, the Bringing Them Home report. Okay, I've also said again how they've done it, the releasing of reports. And then I've given an example. Okay, I've also defined what the AHRC is, which is where one of those marks would have went. Okay, compare the contributions of common law and statute law in enforcing human rights. Well, common law, it's an avenue or appeal for people who feel that their human rights have been ignored, whereas statute law overrides common law. This, though, can mean human rights can be abused by an irresponsible government. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but effectively to compare is to draw the similarities and differences, okay, which is what we're doing here. Definition, I would say 1 mark. 0.5 is going to definition of common law. 0.5 is going to statute law. So that's 1 mark away. So now we're left with 6 marks. 3 would go to differences of common law, 3 to differences of statute law. Okay, that's how I would kind of split it. Again, I would have a go at this question if I were you. I would in fact have a go at all of these questions. Now that we've broken them down, I would certainly use them as a study tool. Okay, so this is a response to this 7 marker. After you have a go at this question, here is something you can refer to. We're not going to go through it, but effectively, this is kind of a sample response.